This episode is brought to you by the Trucking Network's Mega Job Fair. If you are a truck driver looking for a new place to call home, you should be attending the Mega Job Fair. And if you are a trucking company looking to recruit or add more drivers to your fleet, you need to be an exhibitor at the Mega Job Fair. The Mega Job Fair is taking place on September the 24th at Pearson Convention Centre in Brampton, Ontario. For more information, go to thetruckingnetwork.ca or simply Google the Trucking Network.
Hey, how are y'all doing today? Welcome back to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast with your hosts, Chris Harris and John Farquhar. We're glad you could join us here for today's episode. And we're going to talk about a special report that just came out from Trucking HR Canada. And it's a special report that's talking about threats to the supply chain and economic recovery. So, hey, let's get into reviewing the report. Let's have a natter. Chris and I are going to talk lots about it.
And I hit the wrong button. Good morning, John. It's Friday.
Good morning, Chris. It is another Friday. Yay!
Yay! And we are talking about this. It's called the Threats to Supply Chain and Economic Recovery. Kind of a scary title.
Well, yeah, it really gets your attention when it first pops out there. When I first read it, I was like, "What? Holy crap! What are you talking about? Threats?" So,
yeah, well, and there it is, Johnny.
There we go. There you go. Trucking HR. So yeah, so it's really interesting. It was a good read. It's not a long read.
No.
We'll have a link to it in the show notes below. But there's some very interesting information that Chris and I want to bring to everybody's attention, and things that we need to pay attention to. What's going on here?
Well, it is, and it's talking about the truck driver shortage, like we've never heard that expression before.
Yep.
But I'll tell you one of the things that, let's get right into it, because it kind of jumped out at me. This chart here, prior to COVID, back in, the fourth quarter of 2020, we were short just over 15,000 drivers.
Yep.
And now Q1 of 22, add another 10,000. I can't do my math.
Yeah.
We're short 25,000 truck drivers.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's almost doubled in just over a year here. It's crazy.
Well, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And so it just scares the bejesus out of me, because of course trucking is everything to the supply chain.
Yep.
If we can't get the goods not to market, but to the manufacturers and then to market, what's that doing to the economy?
Oh, exactly. Big time. So, well, and what I was going to say, one of the challenges is there's you've got a number of aging, older drivers, old farts like us, who are looking to retire, wanting to get out of the industry, who have been retiring out of the industry and going, hey, I don't want to keep doing this anymore. I'm getting old. I'm seizing up, and whatnot. And I've spent 40 years on the road and I want to spend time with my family now and whatnot. I got grandkids, maybe, all kinds of different things coming on. So, you've got this exit of the industry of older drivers, and we haven't been filling those voids for several years now. The number of younger drivers coming in are way less than they were 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm just highlighting a few things here that catch my eye. And the part about constant recruiting.
Yep.
I mean, I wonder if we were having this conversation off camera. You had mentioned about somebody you were working with this week that can't afford to pay their drivers more, but they aren't including the cost of actually recruiting that driver into their calculations.
No.
Look at constant recruiting. You've read the studies. I've read the studies. It's every driver that you hire, depending on the study, is from $5,000 to as high as $15,000 to recruit a new driver. And the $15,000 one, That one is really interesting. I read a study and it was only 13,000, but I'm adding a couple of grand on for inflation and everything else.
Sure. Yep.
With some of the calculations that they don't include is the cost of that truck sitting against the fence that you're still making a payment on, because very few people own their trucks. You're still paying insurance on that truck.
Yep.
It's not giving you a return on investment, because why in the hell did you buy the truck if you didn't expect a return on investment?
Lost profit right off the bat. Yes.
Right. So, I mean, it includes all of that plus the cost of actually having the driver come in, because most companies today, how long is an orientation? How many days is an orientation today for most of the fleets you work with?
Well, unfortunately, we're seeing it counted in hours, not days, because they're quick to want to get drivers in the trucks, and unfortunately, if they don't move quick, the drivers very quick themselves to go, well, I'll go across the road. I could be to work this afternoon. So
how could you speed up the orientation and still have a quality orientation?
I don't think you can.
Sorry, I mildly disagree. I think you can in a couple of ways. One, part of your orientation could be taken online. So,
yes, definitely. Yep.
And that way, like I set up an orientation for a company, and we've got now an 8-hour orientation all online. So the new driver, and this is what happens. They're still working for their other carrier.
Yep.
They're doing the online training while they're sitting in loading docks and things like that before they get to the new hire. And now the new hire only has 3 or 4 hours to do in person on certain topics that they choose to really emphasize and do it in person. And the other online training is already completed before the new driver even comes.
Makes sense. And that's utilizing more of your time by all means, and reducing the face-to-face time over a couple of days where, that makes total sense what you're talking about. Yeah, well, we can streamline.
Yeah, so this company took a 1.5-day orientation and cut it down to a 4-hour orientation, with the rest of it being online.
Right. So basically they didn't lower the integrity of that orientation by removing stuff. They streamlined the process and repositioned stuff to be online so they didn't have to be face-to-face. Great idea. That's smart thinking.
And one of the things that this carrier does as well, by the way, is they pay for that 8 hours of orientation.
Oh, interesting. Hey, there's a good idea.
Well, because many of the companies that do this online, and they could use Carrier's Edge or Infinity or any of the other things like that, they tend not to pay the driver.
Yes, I don't know why. I don't understand that. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Because this podcast, we're going to get into retention on this episode. And why are we continually asking drivers to do shit for free? And if this is your new hire orientation, is that really the way you want to start off the relationship with your new hire?
Exactly. Yep.
It's mind-boggling to me. We've got to do stuff different.
Yes, we do. We can't keep definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result.
Why are we doing this constant recruiting? Why don't we concentrate more on retention so that my company doesn't have to do constant recruiting?
Exactly. And there's companies out there that have proven that better retention, better programs, better attention to the retention will reduce the amount of recruiting you have to do. Well, geez, if I can reduce the amount of recruiting, look at how much money I can save per driver that I'm having to hire and spend more time on. I'm better off to invest into my retention program.
Well, and all right, have we finished with this report? Because I'm getting passionate now. I'm about to stand up and go on a rant.
Bring it in, brother.
Well, it drives me crazy that people spend so much time, so much money, put so much energy into recruiting.
Yes.
If they would change that and put it into retention, then recruiting would become a much smaller piece of our budget. And we're going to have better drivers because we're retaining the ones that we want to retain.
Yep.
All right.
Well, and a lot of that starts with, let's talk to the drivers that are leaving us. Why are they leaving? What is going on here? Exit interviews are very important. Document that process so that you can go back and trend analyze. What are the trends? Why are drivers leaving our company? What's going on? And if it's got to do with pay, and somebody that says, well, I can't pay anymore, I beg to differ. I think you could pay more, because if you're spending a ton of money in recruiting, you could divert some of those funds, a good portion of those funds, into your retention program. Bring your drivers up to what's current level par. With the freight rates that are going on out there should be no reason why driver wages aren't coming up in particular companies. I know lots of companies that are paying very good wages. They're not having the turnover. And I think we're going in the same direction here. They're paying a certain type of wage.
Well, I was going to say, why in today's world, with all the technology that we have available to us, obviously this is an opinion, but why are we paying the antiquated wage or a system of per mile or per load? We now know when the truck is moving. We now know when the truck is making money. We now know when the truck is sitting in the loading dock. Exactly. Why are we asking the driver to sit in the loading dock and not earn a wage? That's
exactly. Well,
archaic.
Exactly. We've touched on this before in some other episodes, where a lot of these new drivers that are coming in do not understand this archaic method of payment. This mileage base, this, drops and picks, and, I got to give 2 hours wait time if I'm waiting to get loaded or whatever. Why? That's not the driver's problem. He's still responsible for your truck and trailer, your equipment. We need to pay him. He's on the clock. So you've got these young people coming in. Well, we got these young people. We want to come into the industry to fill these voids, but they're coming from other jobs that are, oh, that's interesting, they're paid by the hour. So why are we bringing them into this archaic system, as you say, that pays by the mile or pays by the load? Why aren't we putting them on an hourly basis so they can understand, hour for hour? Okay, this makes sense. And I'm going to kind of go off on a tangent here in a second, because one of the things that we're seeing is poor performance in other areas of their job category. Vehicle inspections. They're not doing what they should be doing because they're going, I'm not getting paid for that. I get paid when the wheels move, so I just need to get the truck going down the road. Well, if we paid hourly, then I could say, you know what, I'm paying you. Make sure you do a proper vehicle inspection. Takes you a half hour, 45 minutes, takes you an hour. You're getting paid, and then when you get in the truck and you start rolling, you're getting paid by the hour. You get stuck at the customer, you get paid by the hour. So when a fella puts in a full 70 hours in a week, he gets paid for all 70 hours. So there should be no confusion about that. Like you said, we got the technology. There's nothing stopping us from doing this. And there are companies out there that are doing this, and they're very successful at it.
And I just read a news release this morning, and not to plug one ELD supplier over another, but I will. This is a free plug. Isaac.
Exactly.
Isaac just announced that you can now export the data from their system into your payroll system.
Oh, wow. Awesome. So they just made it even easier for the accounting people to do payroll.
Yeah. And so wouldn't that be, I just think being paid for what you do is revolutionary.
Yes, exactly. Well, because one of the biggest problems we've had, and you and I have had to deal with this for years because we've worked in the insurance industry, and the insurance industry has always struggled with this per mile basis, because what it does, it incents speed. It incentivizes the driver to go faster, to put on more miles, to cheat their hours or whatever, to get the job done. Because, hey, I'm getting paid by the mile. I got to put more miles in a day. And if I get stuck sitting in a door waiting to get loaded and I lose 2 hours, what am I going to do? I'm going to go as fast as I can to try and make up as many of those miles as I can before the end of the day.
And it encourages the drivers to drive tired or when they're ill, when they're not at peak, because if they're not moving, they're not making money.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
But
the funny part is, the sad part is, they're still responsible for that vehicle when they're not getting paid.
Well, yeah. And so let's talk about how we own a fleet now, and everybody's paid by the mile.
Yep.
And we think, okay, I've heard John and Chris, and gosh, that's a darn good idea that I think I'm going to try to adapt.
Yep.
How could I possibly start the change?
Oh, how about with the new hires?
Oh, have two different incentive systems, you mean? One hourly and one per mile?
Why not? Why not? Why don't we, as the new guys are coming in, say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Let's recruit based on this pay structure.
Or maybe we could recruit and say, we have two pay structures. They're equal. You choose which one you would like to get paid by, per hour or per mile.
Yep.
I don't think it would be that hard.
No, it wouldn't be that hard. It wouldn't be. And I know companies that have done that, and they've actually switched everything all over to hourly pay because the existing drivers that were on board started sniffing around and going, what's this dual pay system you got going on? What is this? And once they find out you're making the same kind of money, if not maybe even a little bit more, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's really simple. So whatever I put in for hours for the week, I get paid for. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, And the beauty of this, and the reason I like this so much is because very few companies are doing it, and I want my companies to stand out, to be different.
Exactly.
And I really believe this is a retention tool. I really believe that it will help reduce their turnover, because if you are spending $15,000 a driver, even if it was only $5,000, think of your bottom line. If you could reduce that by 5 hires, well, all of a sudden this year, that's $25,000 in your pocket. Like,
that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. And that's on the low end. I believe it's $15,000 per hire.
I agree. It's definitely higher than $5,000. There's no way it's that. That's too low.
And my math says that's $75,000. A year in your pocket or to your bottom line. Like, that's huge money. I don't know about you, but $75,000 buys a pretty darn good vacation.
Well, so let's expand on this a little bit. So, because our, risk management minds think this way, that what are some of the advantages of paying by the hour, So, maybe it helps my retention. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. But what other advantages am I going to get by paying by the hour or even on a salary basis?
You already talked about the first one. And maybe it would encourage our drivers to do a proper, thorough, and complete vehicle inspection. That would be the first one. So that's going to help the bottom line because we'll reduce downtime, right? Roadside inspections. We'll reduce violations on the carrier profiles. We'll reduce outrageous expenses roadside because we caught the defect here in the yard rather than out on the road. So we're going to save some money. And whatever fines we may get from those roadside inspections, we'll reduce those next to nothing. Yeah. And you already mentioned it. If it reduces your CVOR violations or your National Safety Code violations, reduces your SMS violations, your insurance company is going to look at you pretty favorably. And I don't want to say reduce your insurance rates, but how about decrease your next year's increase?
Exactly. Might hold it status quo or something,
Or if everybody else is getting a 10% increase on their insurance rates, maybe you only get 7%.
Exactly.
So
There's still a substantial savings there. Yeah. So,
huge
one of the
savings.
big things. Yeah, one of the big things that I see in this pay structure is I now slow the trucks down a little bit. Not substantially. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, yeah, well the guy's going to dog it." No, he's not going to dog it. The speed limit's 100K. He's going to do 100K, right? But he's not going to be in a rush to get under pressure. I got to get more miles. I got to get more miles. No, we're going to operate properly. So we mentioned a little bit less fatigue, right? But we're going to reduce that vehicle speed. So fuel consumption, less wear and tear on the vehicle, and wow, if I reduce the speed, less chance of me being involved in a collision.
Well,
so huge factors.
You reduce your speed. If you decrease fuel consumption, let's say just marginally, 1 or 2%, because instead of doing 105, you encourage your drivers to do 100, between 95 and 100. What does that do to your fuel economy? And then what is that doing to your bottom line? Because
huge.
Maintenance is also improving now too. Because of that.
Exactly. Less beating on the truck to get it to where it needs to go. So we're going to save some money there. So, and if I can reduce my speed and therefore reduce the number of collisions I have over the course of a year, yes, that's a huge savings from an insurance perspective. But I think one of the things a lot of people miss out on is how much do you pay out in the deductible for each claim that you have? So now all of a sudden, if I reduce my claims, how many deductibles do I reduce?
Well, and even if you only reduced one, that deductible is not a true cost of what you're actually paying. Because now... No. Just one example, I think this would be a great podcast episode, but, just the one thing, your truck's been involved in a crash. What did that do to its trade-in value? Just that one thing alone.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people don't think of that.
And the downtime right now, we all know that because of the truck driver shortage, parts are very short. Well, your truck goes into the shop now, and it's there for a long time. And of course, you're still paying for. Anyways, we won't get on that tangent. But
and now we jeopardize losing the driver, because if I don't have another vehicle to put that good driver in, right? Now I'm in trouble, because now I don't have anything to keep him working.
Because it's hard to rent a vehicle right now.
Exactly. Oh, good luck. Everybody's renting vehicles, so good luck trying to find one. So it's just the snowball effect. Yes, exactly. All because of a pay structure. Common denominator, pay structure.
I've seen some court cases in the States now where the lawyers are raising how you are paying your drivers.
Interesting. Yes.
So that's affecting insurance as well, because of course, if they can increase the payout of a certain claim because the jury agrees that maybe you incentivize the driver to speed a little bit or drive tired or whatever, however that smart, aggressive attorney spins it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's going to affect your bottom line.
And especially in the fact that we're seeing a lot of carriers, there's more carriers getting traction in this, and they're starting to look at and pay their drivers on an hourly or salary basis, right? So the prosecuting attorney is perfectly in his right to go, well, this is happening. Why haven't you done something to curb these issues within your organization? So...
And with all the technology that's available today, the attorney gets it, and they can see all of the speeding events.
Yes.
The last fleet I worked for as a safety guy, I tried to reduce that. What a battle when you are paying the drivers hourly, and you are trying to reduce the speeding events. It's very difficult for safety.
I want to throw in an asterisk here to everybody out there that is saying to us right now through the screen, but all my trucks are governed to 105, so I don't have speeding issues. I'm going to say you're so wrong, because we're not talking about the speeding at 105.
Yes.
We're talking about the speeding at 50 kilometers an hour, and your truck's doing 70 kilometers in a 50 kilometer hour zone, or they're doing 100 kilometers in an 80 kilometer zone. These are the areas where we're seeing lots of crashes. This is where you can save tons of money on fuel. So yes, we can reduce 105 down to 100 and put some more money in our pocket, but those aren't the big high areas. It's in town speeding. It's the low end speeding, the posted speed limit issues that we see a lot of trouble with.
Well, that and I have an issue with governing trucks at 105 when the majority of our speed limit here in Ontario still is 100.
Yes.
I'm waiting for that smart attorney to go, geez, why do you govern at 105 when most of your highways are governed at 100? Wouldn't it have been prudent of you to govern it at 100? Never mind.
Exactly.
That the law. We won't get into that, Johnny.
Exactly.
We're coming close to the 30-minute mark.
Yep.
We got to wrap this one up. What else do we need to say about this study? Either the study, and I'll throw that back on the screen again here, I hope.
Yep. I encourage everybody to read it. It's not a hard read. It's like 3-4 minute read. It's
Yes.
great information. There's some really threats to the supply chain and economic recovery. Yes, it's some big words right there to give you a scare tactic. But I think we need to pay attention because as motor carriers, we can all do a better job at how we're hiring drivers. And yes, I know it's hard to get drivers, but at the same time, you obviously at this very moment have drivers in the seats of your trucks. So why are you losing them, and why are you having to replace them when you should be looking at how can I keep them? What is it that I need to do to make these young men and women stay with my company and make us a better company in the long run? Yep. You shouldn't have turnover. Nobody should have turnover. So if you're really wanting to fix the problem, look at the retention.
And John and I understand that what we're suggesting is radical, perhaps, because it is not the norm that we're suggesting that you pay hourly or salary for a lot of different reasons. We believe that it promotes safety. That's the bottom line. And that's what John and I are all about. If you were to need help, or if you want to discuss this further with either one of us, pick a phone. John and I would love to have the discussion. And we could even go so far as to help you structure it and implement it if that was what you wanted our assistance in. But if you just want to talk about it, or if you just want to say, you two are foolish, then pick up the phone. Yes. We'll talk to you about that too.
Let us know. But the one thing's so true here is you cannot continue to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result. You, Mr. Motor Carrier, have to make a change. The only way it's going to change is by making a change. Don't keep expecting it. That's just the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. It's not going to happen.
And, the previous episode that we did, or I don't know if it was exactly the one before, where we talked about mentorship, which is awesome. I encourage everybody to bring new drivers on.
Yeah.
But your insurance company doesn't want a fleet of new drivers. They want you to keep it below 10% for sure. And that's an expensive solution. Why not just keep the drivers you have, reduce your turnover rate? You'd be a lot better off.
Yes, big time. Well, because then you can focus on the guys you have instead of meeting new guys every day of the week.
Yep. I think that's a great way, Johnny. You can wrap her up.
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming and joining us here on the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. We hope we were able to share some valuable information with you. And hey, like Chris said earlier, if you've got any questions, don't hesitate. Reach out, talk to us. We'd be glad to chat with you. So other than that, have a great weekend, everybody. And if you're seeing this on Monday, have a great week. And don't forget to like and subscribe.